Hello, Rachel. All right, so we have enough here to get started. So are we ready to go, Lana?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the New Paltz Planning Board meeting for September 21st, 2021. We have a number of things that we're going to be doing tonight. We're going to start with some administrative business, including approval of minutes, updates from the Village Board, Ulster County Planning Board, and Environmental Policy Board. We have some public comments that we will have, and then we will have a public hearing followed by an application review. We actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 application reviews. And so there we go. So let's get started. So first thing we're going to do is look at the minutes from September 7th, 2021. Did everyone get a chance, who's on the board, did everyone get a chance to take a look at those minutes?
Yes.
Okay, are there any edits, any suggestions, changes that need to be made?
So I did notice on page 4 where I asked a question to the applicant about distance on the site plan. And so it seems like Alana didn't quite get the full question, but I was asking about the distance from one of the cottages to the border of the wetlands that was delineated on the site plan.
Okay, I'll fix that. That was when the fire alarm went off. So I couldn't hear what you were saying. I'll just add that so you guys can just approve them as amended.
Okay.
Are there any other amendments, edits, changes that need to be made to those minutes? No? Okay. So with that in mind, I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes.
So motioned.
The minute, yeah, thank you. Minutes from September 7th, 2021. I need a second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? So the motion is approved and the minutes are accepted with the amendment. Next will be a Village Board, Ulster County Planning Board, and Environmental Policy Board update. Lana, do we have anybody from any of those committees?
No, Bill isn't here right now. And I think Rachel's on the EPB, but I don't know if she has anything to share about that. No, you're muted, Rachel, by the way.
Rachel, you're still muted. Rachel, you are muted. Alana, can you reach out to her? There we go.
I'm using an iPad. I usually use my phone, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with it. It's not a big deal.
Okay. Any updates from the Environmental Policy Board? None of the boards, okay. So in that case, we will move forward. And we're going to start tonight with the public hearing, first public hearing. Subdivision PB 2103, 19193, Huguenot Street, Duncan Holly House Road, zoning district historic. This is a returning application for the public hearing, which was scheduled for tonight. The applicants provided all the necessary documentation to open the public hearing at this meeting. We do have some questions which we can look at, but let's go ahead and get started. So I have a motion to open the public hearing, please.
So motioned.
Second for opening the public hearing, please.
Second.
So the public hearing is now open. Ms. Hasbrook, welcome to the public hearing. So with this public hearing, we are actually inviting all who wish to speak to the matter to be present here and speak. Alana, do you have anyone that's waiting to speak on this?
I don't believe so, and I didn't receive anything in writing from the public or anything, so.
Okay. So we do have a few questions. Ms. Hasbrook, has the revised plat been submitted?
The revised plat has not been submitted. As you can imagine, it has been challenging to find another surveyor to bring on board and work with our current surveyor. But we do have someone lined up to do the field work in the next, we were hoping it would be this week, but she just emailed me to say, weather dependent, she'll be there next week to do the field work. So, and then after that, she doesn't think it's going to take a long time, but it's just getting her there to do the field work. And she will be drawing the new lot line.
Okay.
I discussed this with Rick Golden, and he agrees that's a good solution.
Correct. I think
That's correct.
we also have a note that there are written recommendations, the village engineer and superintendent of public works that are to be submitted.
Yes,
Yeah,
those were submitted quite a while ago, and I have not heard back from anyone.
Very good.
I can reach out to DPW and ask
Thank you.
if that
Yeah.
helps.
And given the circumstances with the planner being Dennis Larios,
Yeah.
we can forego asking for any particular comments on that so as not to exacerbate the situation. So I think the DPW comments, if they have any, or if they say we have no comments, that'll be fine.
Okay, should I wait to get the new survey to forward to him, or can I just let him look at what she submitted already?
Well, it's up to the board, but I would suggest that what has been submitted so far is certainly fine for those purposes. The
Okay.
additional lot line being drawn is not going to make any difference to the DPW that I can see.
Okay, I'll email him tomorrow.
Very good. So as we are still waiting for a revised plat to be submitted, we will need to keep the public hearing open. We will hold it open to give an opportunity for comment when the revised plat is available for review. So with that, I need a motion to hold this hearing open until the next meeting in order to receive the revised plat.
So motion.
I would like to have a second, please.
Second.
What date are you adjourning it to?
When is our next meeting, Alana?
The 5th. But
Yeah,
it sounds like it's really not going to be in time if they're going to go out next week, and then it will be soon thereafter when the plat comes in, and it needs to come in a little bit before the meeting, obviously. So I'm thinking probably the 19th.
Would it be possible? Well, okay. I'm just looking I'm just thinking if they do have the plat available, we could hold the meeting. If they do not, then we can continue to hold it open.
That's fine. Whatever you want to do.
That way, if it does by chance get in, we can move the application along. So let's.
I mean,
put it-
there is a slight possibility it will be done by October 5th, but it won't be, I don't know how far in advance you're going to need it, and not sure it's going to be that far, ahead of time.
Rick, how far in advance do we need it? At least a couple of days, correct?
Yeah, usually it's at least a week, but it sounds to me like it's not going to be ready until the 4th or 5th. That's why I was suggesting that it be the next board meeting on the 19th. But if you want to schedule it in the hopes that it'll come in early, then we can just adjourn it again on the 5th, going over to the 19th.
Ms. Hasbrook, why don't we go ahead and do that? And then should it not arrive in time, you can let us know. You can reach out to Alana. That way we can just go ahead and note that it's going to be held open for the following week. However, if it is available, then we'll be able to to move through the public hearing and on to the application review.
Sure. That would be preferable to try to get it in for the October 5th,
Okay,
if we can. She's very busy, so I'm, really, I'm just hoping for the best.
well, let's do that then. So I want a motion then, please, if you would, for keeping this, holding the hearing open until our next meeting on October 5, in order to receive the revised plat.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so the motion is carried. The public hearing will be held open until October 5th in hope of receiving the plat. So with that, we are finished with our.
But Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I might just bring up a couple of things that may help streamline it so we don't put this over some of these issues until the later dates. One is in connection with my memo to the planning board is with respect to parking. So if we could get Corey to weigh in on that issue. It's under issues, it's 3 little I's. We can also discuss, I think, the recreation fee issue at this time.
Okay. I was going to have that as part of the application review, but we can certainly do it now.
Whatever your preference is.
Let's go ahead with the application review, but I have made a note here, issues with 3 small I's, and we'll take a look at that and have Corey weigh in on that.
Okay.
Now, I was under the impression that the recreation fee was not necessary if it was under, if the lots are a certain size. And I think we've strived very hard to reach that
Right, we can certainly,
correct size.
we'll certainly discuss that here as we go through the process and make sure that that's covered well. And we'll take into account that information. So with that in mind, we're going to start our application reviews for the first one, the subdivision PB 2103, 19193 Huguenot Street. Application to subdivide a 5.241 acre plot into 2 parcels, property located in the historic district, currently improved with 2 dwellings, each of which is proposed to be located on its own lot in various sheds. Proposed lot 1 will be 2.005 acres. Lot 2 will be 3.236 acres. No new construction is proposed. At the 5/25/421 meeting, the board weighed the preliminary plat requirement, permitted the submission of a plat with details that are required. Seeker, it is an unlisted action, and we decided to proceed with an uncoordinated review. We made a determination of significance of a negative declaration in the 8/17/21 meeting. The property is located within 500 feet of the town boundary, with the application exempt from referral under the agreement with the Ulster County Planning Board as a subdivision of fewer than 5 lots with no access roads or structures located within the 100-year floodplain. The variances, the ZBA has granted the front yard variance and the driveway frontage variance. The plan's been revised to eliminate the need for a side yard variance. The ZBA's decision was conditioned on the applicant recording in the Ulster County Clerk's Office an easement and shared maintenance agreement for the shared driveway that is acceptable to the Village Planning Board, and upon the applicant receiving approval from the planning board and a building permit within 12 months in accordance with the village code. So we just covered the issue of the village engineer and superintendent of public works. Rick, do you want to lead us through the remaining issues?
Sure. The first one is that there's a note on the previous plans the plat that will be revised. But there's a note saying that there are 2 easements that are not plottable. And I don't understand that concept, and I don't expect the applicant to explain it this evening. But I would suggest speaking with the surveyor, and so you can relay to the board why they are not plottable. Easements are required under the code to be on the plat for various reasons. So if you can find out why they are saying they're not plottable,
They're,
That would be
these are,
helpful.
these are Central Hudson and they're both Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation easements. They're not plottable because there's no dimensions associated or connected to those. It's just clearly an easement for the electrical company to put their power lines up, but there's no dimensions that we could plot for that. And that's actually very common to have those sort of telephone and electrical easements.
And it's also common to have them. So if you can submit the easement documents, I don't believe I've seen those, so that I can see that they have no
They're
dimension.
in the title report that was submitted, and again, there's no, it's they're also going back to, you know, quite a long time ago, from Laura Hasbrook to the early 1900s, and it just basically says that there's an easement for Central Hudson, and that's it. But I'm happy to provide that.
If you've already provided it, I will look through that. I didn't see that. But that's in response to my question, so I'll go ahead and look that up. Thank you. The second thing is that there's required a maintenance agreement that you have done, and we've begun looking at that here in our office, and I should have that out to you this week with our modifications.
Yeah, I can send you tomorrow some changes that I've already made to it, just cleaning it up. And you're talking about the common driveway utility easement
Yes.
and maintenance agreement. Yeah. So I've already made some changes, and
Well, it doesn't make sense to have us both independently work on changes. So I will wait, submit that to Alana. Alana will circulate it to the board and to me. And then I will look at those and make the final modifications and finalize that agreement so it doesn't hold things up.
Okay.
We talked about Corey looking at the parking. And then the final issue is with respect to recreation fees.
Yes, and this is my thought, and I'd like for the members of the board to weigh in on this, as they are the idea is whether or not the subdivision will add to the village's need for recreation. And my thought is that as they are existing and no new residences are being added, I do not believe that the recreation fee applies for this application. Is there any discussion by the board that about this? Thoughts?
That makes sense to me. No new residents.
Right, yeah, I guess my only question is, will the use of the lots change? Will the density increase, or will it remain the same?
It will remain exactly the same. I mean, everything is remaining the same. We're not even touching a tree here. All we're doing is working with pre-existing non-conforming structures.
Right.
Yeah, then I agree with John.
Do you have any questions or any thoughts on that?
Do I have any?
I've asked Rachel here for just.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't hear what you were saying.
Okay.
For some reason, the sound cut out, but my guess is that you're saying that since they're not building anything and there's no need to charge them a recreation fee, and that sounds reasonable to me. Am I getting that? I missed most of what you said.
That's exactly right. You got
Okay.
this is-
That makes sense.
Okay. So do we need to make a motion not to charge a recreation fee for this, or can we just note this in the application?
I will note it in the resolution that the board determined that there is no new demand on the village's recreation facilities, and therefore there is no recreation requirement either by property set aside or by payment in lieu of the set aside.
Very good, thank you. So with that in mind, Ms. Hasbrook, the public hearing is going to be held open until all the material is completed and sent. If you would, just please work with Alana to have those specific items completed and sent to Rick, and we'll be able to close the public hearing and potentially complete your application at the next meeting, which is in October. Does that sound fair to you?
Yes, that's, I mean, I will we'll do our best to get it done by October 5th, but I have to work around the surveyor's schedule. So I'm really,
All we can ask.
Right.
So with that in mind, we're going to be, we're finished with that application, and we'll be moving on to the next one. Thank you very much, Ms. Hasbrook. I appreciate
thank
you.
you.
So now we are going to move to our second site plan, and it's a change of use, PB 2109, 25 North Front Street, Legacy Yearwood, zoning district is in B2. So we're going to discuss this for a moment. This is a new application for a change of use from a mixed use to a commercial use. This is it's the existing apartment in a mixed use building being changed, which is now residential and retail, changing it to all retail by virtue of the offices. The property consists of 0.31 acres in the B2 core business district. It's a type 2 action. Reuse of a residential or commercial structure or of a structure containing mixed residential and commercial uses, where the residential or commercial use is permitted under the applicable zoning law or ordinance. The referral of properties within 500 feet of State Route 32, but the application is exempt per the agreement with the Ulster County Planning Board if the following conditions are met. An increase in parking is not required. This is something that we will want to hear from our applicant. Channelized access to the state or county road exists. And if new site lighting, if proposed, utilizes the full cutoff luminaries and does not exceed the IEA lighting levels, which Andy Willingham should get to us. And then there will need to be a public hearing set. So, Ms. Yearwood, if you would just go ahead and step forward and give us a little idea of what you're looking to do, and be happy to listen.
Yeah, sure. Hi. So when I first bought the building in 2011, it had an apartment upstairs. And over time, so many of my employees have lived there, but I'm just kind of tired of being a landlord, and we need more space for the business. So the downstairs that we have is all production and retail shop space. And we just have a need for offices. So the upstairs, I just want to convert it to offices. I'm not doing any construction. There's literally nothing is changing. It's just that no one's living there. So I'm not doing any kind of like putting up walls or taking down walls or anything. That's it. It's pretty simple. It's will be less usage. I know that there's, different parking requirements, but it'll be less usage for the building because not having tenants parking there will be a little bit less parking needed, and super simple. That's all it is.
Okay. And do you want to talk to us about the lighting?
So we weren't proposing to change any lighting out there. We're going to keep it as is. There are some lights there now for the parking lot. We're going to just leave it as it is.
The lighting is super minimal. I know it's all whatever it is you need for birds, like downcast lighting. There's no like super bright lighting. Yeah, it's I think it's all in compliance with the code, so it's nothing wild.
Okay. And if you just make sure that we have that information, please, it would be good. So with that in mind, any other questions from the board that we'd like to pose for the applicant?
Someone living there now?
Nope, no one's living there. Yeah.
That makes it easier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not kicking anyone out, thank God.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, with that in mind, then I think the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set a public hearing, which will be required. So I'm going to ask for a motion to set the public hearing for October 5th, 2021.
So motions.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, so the motion does carry. Please work with the lawn and court, ensure all items and points are noted and met. And with that in mind, we will see you here for a public hearing on the 5th of October.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
So moving on now, we are at item number 3. This is the site plan for PB 2104, 5 Plattekill Avenue. Applicant is Brian Keenan. Zoning district is B2. So the summary of this is it's an application for site plan and special use permit approval for a bar and outdoor cafe restaurant. The property consists of approximately 0.41 acres located along Plattekill Avenue in the B2 core business district and is currently improved with an existing mixed-use building, 6 one-bedroom apartments and 1,400 square foot of retail space. The applicant is seeking to replace the existing retail space with a proposed bar and outdoor cafe restaurant. A portion of the existing parking driveway area will be converted into outdoor seating, and the residential use and associated required parking will remain. Parking for the outdoor cafe restaurant will be primarily provided in the adjacent municipal parking lot per the village code, and a privacy fence and landscaping are proposed around the outdoor seating area. We previously typed this as a type 2 action. We did refer it to the county. The Ulster County Planning Board gave its recommendation dated 7/7/21 with the following required modification. Truck turning templates to demonstrate there is adequate room for truck traffic to access the site will need to be provided for the planning board. There was a ZBA variance granted to allow a bar within 500 feet of school and church, and we still need to set a public hearing. So with that in mind, Mr. Keenan, I understand we've discussed this before. We're all reasonably familiar.
Right.
So we're actually going to toss this to Rick to discuss some of the issues that were noted and work to resolve those. And then we will follow up by looking at the special use permit, making some discussions about that, and then on we go. So Rick, do you want to give us a brief on the issues, please?
Okay, with respect to the Ulster County Planning Board mandatory recommendation, you had mentioned it concerning the need to review whether or not there's adequate room for truck traffic to access the site. And so they are requiring that truck turning templates be submitted to the planning board for their review. I think the planning board, if they feel comfortable looking at these truck turning templates and to interpret them and potentially catch any errors that may have been made, you could review it yourself. Otherwise, I would suggest that you have a traffic engineer look at, or some other engineer look at the turning templates for the trucks so that they could advise you.
Okay, while we're there, let's go ahead and look at that. My personal belief, and I'd like to hear from other members of the board, is that I would not feel comfortable because I would not understand the templates and would want to make sure that the decision is made correctly for the applicant. We do have on board a consultant that could look at it, but we also have a standard engineer, a traffic engineer that could look at it as well. That was mentioned, and I believe even in one of the discussion points, excuse me, Mr. Willingham noted that it might be just as well to have someone have that engineer look at those.
Yeah, before, just so the board knows, there's not gonna be that much to look at. The only trucks that come onto the site now is a garbage truck, refuse truck that comes in and front loads the dumpsters. The parking lot is not big enough for truck traffic, similar to almost every other property on Main Street. The deliveries are gonna come on Plattekill Avenue. So there's gonna be, I mean, we could show the garbage truck movement. It's gonna need to back out. So there's no they don't use the area that's proposed for outdoor dining right now. They're gonna continue to do what they do now, and there's so I guess what I'm saying is there's not gonna be much truck movements to see.
I have no engineering experience, but as a pedestrian, I've seen trucks go back there. I've seen most of the time, you're right, the big delivery trucks they sit there on Plattekill Avenue, but I've also seen other trucks pull in there, and there really isn't room for them to turn around. I don't see why there should be. My concern is more pedestrians. And I really think that initially we talked about the sidewalk, and I'm convinced that it's necessary to have a sidewalk go through there along the wall. You know what I'm talking about? I sent Zach a picture of it since I'm somewhat technologically challenged over here. But if you look at it, you've got all kinds of, you do have sort of traffic pulling in and out of there. And there's no way really for the pedestrians to get over there unless there was a walkway through there. Otherwise, you're going to have people going through the parking lot, and it makes it more like a strip mall than a plaza. You know, I feel like there should be some kind of pedestrian access. That would be good for the cafe too, for them to have pedestrian access from the sidewalk. I'm trying to, I drew it on a Google Earth photo of the.
Why don't we, those are excellent ideas, but why don't we wait for just a moment to discuss those, and we can move those a little farther down. I think right now what we want to try to do is determine whether we need to have an engineer look at those templates or whether we felt comfortable. I know I don't. You said you don't, Zach. Tom, do you want to weigh in on what you think would be appropriate in terms of review of?
Yeah, I'm open to having an expert look at those. I'm not really clear on what a truck turning template is.
Yeah, if that's how the board feels, I think we should do that. I'm also open to just taking a look at it. If it's only going to be one diagram for a garbage truck, then I think that it should be pretty straightforward. But yeah,
I think where it may get into something a little bit more than that, Zach, is that typically these templates spec out a particular truck that is intended to be used, or the maximum size of one, and then they calculate what is the turning radius of that particular truck. But at times, as everyone does, they make mistakes. It's just more difficult for a non-expert, such as myself, certainly, to pick out that they made a mistake in the turning radius or calculating what it would take for that size truck. So a lot of times planning boards do have some type of engineer, whether it's a traffic engineer or a civil engineer, to look at that to make sure that the calculations make sense.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
The other thing that I would
Go ahead, Rick.
it's just that I was a little bit concerned with Andy's statement that the only one that's going on is a garbage truck, and that's going to be backing out. I think that's something that the planning board ought to look at, since that's usually not the optimal for trucks, even garbage trucks going into sites and then having to back out onto a roadway. But that's my only other comment on that.
Okay. Why don't we now, we had looked at a particular engineering firm to look at templates. Here, I think we actually mentioned one earlier. Is that correct?
You have PDE that is working on the annexation.
Yeah, there are consultants. Why don't we see, or is the board comfortable with having Carlito at PDE take a look at these items on our behalf?
Sure.
Yes, I am.
It's not a heavy lift for a traffic engineer, believe me.
No. Given all the other things he's looked at, it should be fairly simple. So why don't we, Andy, get that template and let's get that to our consultant. We can make arrangements through Alana, so if you'll make sure she gets that, then we can get that taken care of relatively quickly.
Can I comment on this?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say that I have another restaurant that has an easement to that lot, McGillicuddy's, and I have given no trucks permission to ever be in that lot. We open at 3 p.m. during the week, and in today's labor market, there's a different driver every single time, and I will run outside and say, you cannot park in this lot. And it does it happen? It does, but it's literally on their delivery notes. Every single food, liquor, and beer company that I use do not pull into this lot. So really the only trucks that come in with my permission are a garbage truck, front loader, and they've been doing that for the last 25 years.
Is this something, Rick, that we might be able, if he places that caveat in terms of satisfying the Ulster County Planning Board, or do we, because they have actually mandated this, it would be tough for us to not do it, but would that satisfy their need and desire, do you think?
It sounds to me like they would want to have, even if the resolution has a condition saying the only truck that can access the site are solid waste trucks picking up the trash. It sounds from the mandatory recommendation that they want to have turning templates to demonstrate that there's enough room, presumably even for the garbage trucks. The other way, if you all believe that it's not necessary, you can override this mandatory requirement by a supermajority of the board on your approval, indicating in a report back to them why you're not agreeing with their mandatory recommendations, such as the fact that there's going to be a condition, no trucks, but the trash truck, and they are not going to be turning around if that's the determination of the board.
I just want to add that the county comment, it seems like the root of it was that the outdoor dining area was going to take up some of the area that they thought maybe trucks were turning around in. That was the first part of their comment. Outdoor dining area may alter or hinder the ability of delivery trucks to turn around. And they don't use that area. So I think it seems like that was the intent of their comment, is that trucks were using that area. Just want to add that.
So really our options are either to comply with the Ulster County Planning Board and to get the templates made and then studied by our engineer, or as Rick explained, with the supermajority, which would mean there's 4 of us here, so essentially all 4 of us would need to vote on saying that we do not need the truck templates, and as part of the resolution, then saying that as part of the key here is that we would need a written mandate from Mr. Keenan that he's offered with his other trucks that trucks are not allowed in that area. And I understand, especially with the Cisco, the US Foods, other trucks, the beer trucks, that could be really pretty difficult anyway. I've seen them unload on the side street and then hand truck run it all into the kitchen. So I can verify that I've seen that actually happen. So it's not an issue. So do we want to require the templates, or do we want to override it with the resolution stating that we will require I don't know how you would word it, written mandate from.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
What exactly are they worried about? Are they worried about a truck pulling in there and then needing to turn around and getting stuck? I mean,
Yep.
it's such a small space. I can't imagine someone driving in there and even thinking they can turn around. Because it's not even, it's, you know, that small strip of that parking lot that's over there. Is that what they're worried about?
Yes.
Yes, that's the way they worried, that they worded it, which makes sense, that they're worried that delivery trucks come in there and they turn around where the dining area is gonna be now, and that they won't be able to turn around. So they
Well,
don't do that now, yeah.
I don't think they can turn around at all anyhow.
No.
Like, couldn't you just put a sign up saying no trucks? Except the garbage truck?
They could. I think we can certainly require that and require a statement from the owner that no trucks will be allowed in there. And that is certainly one way around it. It's just anyone else on the board? How do you want to approach that?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that option. It feels unnecessary to go through this extra step of truck templates and analysis when no delivery trucks are really going to go in there and have to turn around.
Tom,
They
what are your
can't.
thoughts?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, they can't, the side lot where the tables are going to go, they can't really access that now anyway, right? With the way the parking spots are there.
Correct.
So
Correct.
that wouldn't change just based on the fact that now there's going to be tables there instead of cars, right? So I'm okay with that.
So, Mr. Keenan, are you okay with us having as a condition of this that you mandate that the trucks cannot be back there as you are currently already doing?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Rick, how do we go about this then?
It will be a finding in the ultimate resolution of approval, assuming that you approve it, which would, one, require a sign be posted saying no delivery trucks may enter other than garbage truck. And we would have to send a report back to the Ulster County Planning Board. When you override their recommendation, you have to send a report back stating why, and your reasoning would be that there are no trucks that are entering other than a garbage truck that will not be turning around.
Okay. So with that in mind, then I'd like a motion to override the recommendation of the Ulster County Planning Board requiring truck turning tables. Is that the right word there? What truck?
No move.
You need 4 votes for this, remember.
Okay.
It's a majority of the whole board.
Okay. So what we need is I want a motion then to override the Ulster County Planning Board recommendation that the truck turning templates be required by the applicant. Motion?
So moved.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So that does mean all 4 of us have done that, so we are going to override that. Rick, I guess I'll speak with you in the coming days to get that report written up and signed.
Yeah, we can wait
Do
until the
that.
very end to do
Okay.
that. There's no need to do it now because something may come up before the approval that may change that dynamic. So usually you just wait until after you've taken your resolution and you send them a follow-up report saying this is why we overrode.
Yeah, when they send the comments back, they also send this form that I return to them once the application's finished that says whether or not we accepted the modifications or not. So I'll do that once the application is over.
Okay. So Rick, do you want to go ahead and
Sure. More a housekeeping thing, but it's important for purposes of approvals and the resolution of approval. The application does not correctly identify the owner LLC. According to the county records, the owner is Paul's Realty, Plattekill Avenue, New LLC. But the New York State Department of Corporation database indicates the correct name of the entity is Plattekill Avenue, New Paul's Realty, LLC. So I believe that that's actually the proper corporate entity. And,
Correct.
okay. And
The
then,
latter.
right, so you should just modify the application so that it's clear. And also somebody has to sign on behalf of an entity like an LLC, just say that you are managing member of the LLC and have authorized you to sign the document.
Got it.
So that should be done. You can work with Alana to go ahead and do that in an efficient manner. There is, in my memo to the board, there's a section under site plan sheet SP1, number 3, that talks about the need for Corey to weigh in on minimum lot size requirements. I can't recall now if I sent this to Corey or not. So if you could send that to Corey so he can weigh in on that.
Sure.
And the same thing with the following number, number 4, the bulk table identifying various existing nonconformities. And Corey should confirm that they are legal pre-existing nonconformities that don't require a variance. Before we get to the special use permit issues, the state system called by the acronym CRIS, CRIS, indicates that this building is listed on the State Register of Historic Places. Typically, that would mean that you would ship it off to, no pun intended, SHPO. But Andy Willingham indicated in a response back that basically that applies to almost every downtown building.
Right.
But usually you wouldn't simply ignore that simply because the large area of downtown is that way. It may be best, since it is the downtown historic district, to refer this to the Historic Preservation Commission of the village and see if they have any concerns with respect to what's being done. So that's what I would suggest the planning board do if they want to do that.
That'll actually be the quickest and easiest way to do it. Thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Historic Preservation Committee is a great resource and we should take advantage of them.
Okay. So we can move that off and get that to Tom and get his feedback on it then.
So Alana, you'll take care of that, or?
Yeah, I can just send that to him real quick. I'll do it tomorrow.
Okay.
And then getting to the special use permits, there are general conditions, as the board knows, set out in 212-40, and the planning board needs to review the application and its narrative to satisfy yourself that they've met these general standards. The second one is provides a specific standard that such uses shall not be located within 500 feet of schools or churches. They've gotten a variance from that requirement. And means of public ingress and egress shall be a minimum of 200 feet from the boundary of any residential district. Andy, is that something you can calculate and put on the plan on a revision? To make sure that you're minimum of 200 feet from the boundary of a residential district?
Yes, let's see. Yeah, we actually have that on there. It's, if you look at the project vicinity map on the top left, there's a residential district that to the east is 592 feet. So it is on there, but we can,
Okay, I missed that. Okay,
yeah, it's not that parent, but it's on there.
all right. The next one is specific standard concerning the restaurant SUP. That restaurants in the B2 and Gateway districts shall meet all applicable standards for height, lot coverage, and off-street parking stated elsewhere in the chapter. And either the planning board or Corey should review the site plan to make sure that that's correct.
Okay, let's have Corey take a look at those. If we could, please, and get a report back from him.
Then the last comments was second to last comments deal with signage, as noted in my memo. And it says the sign of the canopy, and I know that Andy has gotten copies of these comments, so he may want to weigh in. But the size of the canopy sign on sheet SP4 needs to be clarified. Shows the canopy on the building indicating a sign height of 18 inches, but above that, the enlarged canopy sign detail indicates a height of 16 inches. And also maximum wall sign is dependent on the length of the building, et cetera. Do you have responses to these, Andy?
Now, there was a sign consultant that did the full design, and we'll go through these with them and make sure that, you know, they're all addressed
Okay.
and
Then
make the changes as needed.
Okay, so there are 4 items that the board has and also Andy has. So there's no sense in me going through them in detail. We'll just have Andy have a corresponding memo indicating how they've been addressed or that they are in compliance.
Okay.
And then the last thing is architectural drawings are required to include an indication of exterior materials. And the architectural drawing states the existing roof will be replaced with a standing seam metal roof. And the drawings indicate the brick facade won't change, but there's no indication of the canopy materials. So I think that the canopy materials need to be on there and the board be satisfied with what the canopy materials will be.
Okay.
And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Thank you. So as part of what we need to do, we need to look at the SUPs and the responses that were sent by Mr. Willingham. Everyone has a copy of that, but I'll go ahead and take a read on it very quickly, and then we can discuss. I think Rachel had issues related to the sidewalk and trees, and then we can look at approving the SUPs after that. So with that in mind, the following describes a special use permits request for 5 Plottable Avenue with a discussion of how each use will meet village requirements and standards for particular uses. Submitted on June 25th. Bar, restaurant, and building mixed use, part 6 of the site plan application. If located in a residential district, will the proposed use meet a community need or convenience? If so, in what way? Response is that the project is not located in a residential district. The next one, number 2, considering the location and size of the use, the nature and intensity of the proposed operations, and the size of the site and the location with respect to the streets providing access, will the proposed use be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the zoning district in which it is located? The response is the project is in the core of the business district in the village. Several other bars and restaurants are located directly, adjacently, and in the immediate vicinity of the project. The village municipal parking lot, which is the main source of the parking for the bars and restaurants in the village, is located directly next to the project. The project is consistent with and will be in harmony with the neighborhood and zoning district. Item number 3, will the location, nature, and height of the building walls, fences, and existing proposed landscaping of the site hinder or discourage appropriate development and use of adjacent properties? The response is the existing building will be upgraded significantly with regard to aesthetics. As part of the renovations for the restaurant bar, facade will be renovated and the pavement area will be converted to a restaurant seating area with an awning. Site design also includes landscape planters, decorative fencing, and other plantings. The project will be an upgrade to what exists currently, and will be an upgrade to what exists and will not discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent properties. Number 4, will the operations connected with the special use be more objectionable to nearby properties by reason of noise, fumes, vibration, or other characteristics than operations of any permitted use not requiring a special use permit? The response is that the restaurant bar is similar in nature to many other uses in the immediate vicinity of the property. The restaurant bar will have outdoor seating, however, is not anticipated to create any noise beyond what is currently generated by the adjacent municipal parking lot, other restaurants and bars in the immediate area, and traffic on nearby Main Street. The project will not create fumes, vibrations, or other characteristics that are objectionable to nearby properties. Our parking areas of adequate size for the use, properly located and suitably screened from adjoining residential uses, and entrance and exit drives laid out in a manner to ensure maximum and adequate safety. The response is the project is located directly next to a large municipal parking lot, which in addition to the parking provided on site, will provide additional and adequate parking for the project. The property is not located in a residential zone. The only residential use is located nearby the project is the 6-unit multifamily building located on the subject property. The project includes significant landscaping to improve aesthetics and views from the neighboring property. So it then goes on with additional requirements such as you shall not be located within 500 feet of schools and churches. An area variance application was made to the zoning board and was approved. Means public ingress and egress shall be a minimum of 200 feet from the boundary of any residential district. The response is the means of public ingress and egress for the project will be approximately 580 feet from the nearest residential district located at the west end of Center Street. And then finally, additional requirements for restaurant uses in B2 district. This shall meet all applicable standards of height, lot coverage, and off-street parking stated elsewhere. Responses as demonstrated on the project site plans. The project meets all applicable standards for height, lot coverage, and off-street parking stated elsewhere in this chapter. So those are the responses to the original SUPs that we had there. And it says all the SUPs are subject to any reasonable conditions the planning board may impose. So with that in mind, it appears that he has made the responses to it. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments on the responses themselves?
I do. I think that that area has just recently gone through a change. You know, there used to be 2 other bars there, but those bars were both converted into apartment buildings, and they are adjacent to the project. So there is kind of it is part of a residential, a mixed use area. There's apartments above all the buildings on Main Street. So it says it's not in a residential, but it is. I mean, I don't think that's a problem, but I just think that it just makes it sound like it's not in a residential area. And I feel like it is. And that's why I really want to ask for sidewalks.
Okay. That's fair. I think when it says is residential area, that it's talking about a designated R1, R2 residential area.
Oh, a zone.
Yeah, as a zone.
I don't know. I think we need to look at that closely. I'm not sure that I'd have to look at it because I'm not sure that it is restricted to a residential zone versus a residential area.
Okay.
Well, it used there were two clubs there, and all that whole area was converted to apartments around the parking lot.
Yeah, somewhat related to that, I did have a question about the bar use and how late the outdoor seating would be serving alcohol. I mean, if it's going to be a loud bar scene until 4 a.m. when bars close, I think that might be a problem for the residents in the area.
Mr. Keenan, you want to address that?
Sure. Well, the plan, when COVID came last year, I had outside seating for McGillicuddy's as part of the state of emergency. And that I just, I said, I'll stay open until they have me close or no one wants to sit out there. I know it's not apples to apples, but no one came to sit outside after 10 o'clock. So, will it be the same? I'm not sure. My plan is not to have a big, loud bar. I would like to, the original purpose for serving past midnight is because the retail indoor space is so small. I think it's 1,800 square feet. And if you take into account the bathrooms, the kitchen, it's really a tiny little place. So the whole idea of the outside seating was just to seasonally be able to make the place just viable based on the amount of money I'd have to put into doing the renovation. So, realistically, there's no bar outside. It will be table service. I don't plan, my plan, I don't want to paint myself into a corner here, but my plan is not to stay open outside later than midnight. I do know, having a restaurant bar right there, that municipal lot is much more of an issue with noise than people sitting at a cafe even at 11, 12 o'clock at night. But my plan is not to have a loud thumping bar. I'm just trying to maximize my hours to make it viable business-wise for the amount of investment I have to put into the property.
What were your stated hours of operation?
We didn't state them. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what we're doing, if we're opening for lunch and maybe opening in the afternoon. But, the State Liquor Authority, for a bar, at McGillicuddy's, I can stay up until 4 a.m., 7 nights a week. And I'm closed at midnight most nights during the week and 2 a.m. on the weekends. And I do not plan on being open that late at the new place.
I think noise is pretty much a fact of life in that area. Like, it's sort of like, I know people complain about it once in a while, but I feel like it's like moving next to an apple pie factory and then complaining that it smells like apple pie. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's going to be some noise. If you say you didn't get any complaints during COVID, it used to be louder. It used to be a lot louder.
Any other concerns that we need to bring up related to this from anyone?
Well, I keep mentioning the sidewalk related to
that issue now that we've moved through the past pieces there.
To follow up on this whole residential district versus residential area,
Yes.
there are two items. One is the general aspects of the standards under 212-40, and they deal with different issues. So it says that parking areas will be of adequate size for particular use, properly located and suitably screened from adjoining residential uses. So if you're talking about screening of parking areas, then the relevant issue is any residential use. So it's not a residential district.
Okay.
But if you talk about under bars and taverns as to means of public ingress and egress, shall be a minimum of 200 feet from the boundary of any residential district.
Okay.
So I think the only thing that would bring it beyond the district issue, and it's not within 200 feet of a district issue, as we've talked about before, and that is with respect to parking and screening. That it is as to any kind of residential use nearby.
Now, the parking, however, is not his. It's owned by the village. So that would be really the responsibility of the village to screen it, would it not?
That's correct.
And
the village wouldn't be subject to this because it's a municipal lot, and
right.
they're not subject to these zoning restrictions. So what I was saying is that although there's an area that deals with the parking, that's not going to be applicable to this particular application, but generally it is an issue. So I didn't want to just say that it's not an issue and then people think that it's generally not an issue for any bar.
Got it. Understand. So that then kind of covers the noise issue, because there is going to be screening. I believe they are talking about a privacy fence or a fence. Is that correct, Andy and Mr. Keenan?
Correct.
Yes, there will be more of a decorative fence than landscaping along the cafe. The seating area is more of a separation between, yes, actually between the parking lot and the use.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
About the noise issue, is there not something in the village code about how late you can operate outdoors?
There is, but this, Tom, it's a great question. And it pops up all the time. And that is that municipalities may, but they're not required to, have noise ordinances. Those are essentially criminal statutes that they're protecting generally the public welfare of not having anybody, regardless of whether or not they come before a board, of keeping below a certain decibel level. But it doesn't mean that the planning board is powerless under a particular circumstance of reviewing a project to go ahead and mitigate the impact of noise from a particular project. So they're really two separate things. The noise ordinance is supposed to satisfy some different criminal aspect to the noise issue, whereas your planning board powers include your powers to try to mitigate noise that may be disrupting, even if it's otherwise allowable under the criminal statute of the code.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I think the consideration is just for those apartments, those 6 apartments right there that will now be right next to outdoor, an outdoor bar in the evening. But if there was like a consideration for, like, no music played outside after 10 or something like that on weeknights, like, I don't, if, just something that, it was it's because it was the back of McGillicuddy's before, and now they'll be basically right next to the outdoor area. So it seems like there should be some, something to mitigate that for the people who live in those apartments.
Yeah, I think
Those are my tenants, and I did have they're long-term tenants. They've all had leases that have expired and decided to stay. They're month to month. I have a vested interest in not having a loud, disorderly premise, or I wouldn't be able to keep any of my own tenants. I gave them assurances with the landscaping, and my plan for the music is to have speakers ground level on the inside of landscaping facing the dining area and not being loud. So I don't want my own tenants to move out or complain.
Right.
I really do. I have a real interest in not being a nuisance.
But the one thing I just want to
Go ahead.
relay to Mr. Keenan, and I understand and do not question your position on this, but what the planning board is dealing with is they are dealing with a use that they are approving under certain circumstances. If next week you sell it to somebody else, they get all of the same kind of restrictions and none of the new restrictions if they're going to have the exact same use as you. And so they may not be as tolerant or concerned about the neighbors as you are. So typically, to Tom's point, if you are planning on doing some mitigation like you're discussing, we could put that into the resolution as a condition that that's how you're going to deal with outside music. That is, that the speakers will be on ground level facing toward or away from the residential use.
Absolutely.
The unfortunate thing is that anything that we grant goes with the land. It doesn't go with the person or business. So were you to then sell it to someone who was unscrupulous, then all of the rights that we give then could go to that unscrupulous person. So we just need to make sure that we attend to both your needs, wishes, and desires, and make sure that we have adequate protections for the village as well. So let's put in there the speakers aimed in a different direction. Andy, you're going to speak to some of the landscaping that you have planned that you and Mr. Keenan have?
Yes, we had Eileen Travis from my office, the landscape architect, has proposed pretty extensive landscaping, actually. In addition to the decorative fencing, there's concrete planters, there's all kinds of plantings on the outside and inside of the fence, up against the building as you walk in. We're going to leave that one existing tree that's there. So it's really going to be quite an upgrade here as far as landscape. And Brian's agreed to really put some money into that to make it look nice.
And we were also very mindful with the landscaping to try to make that as much of a noise buffer as possible. High grasses and plantings that come right to the top of that fence area.
Let's make sure that we include those as part of the resolution, so we can have some assurance that it's going to mitigate some of the noise that would be generated from the music and from the later night dining.
Well, when you would be approving the landscaping as on the plan, which means that needs to be put in there. We can put in a condition, which we do from time to time, saying that it's the obligation of the owner to go ahead and keep the vibrancy of those landscaping plantings in perpetuity.
Correct. There we go. So that should handle that. Now let's discuss the sidewalk. So one of the issues that Rachel is discussing is the sidewalk, which would allow pedestrians to go from essentially from the street to the restaurant. Is that correct, Rachel?
Well, it would go through. I'm gonna try to, it would go
Right.
through.
Hey, Reed, so you want me to share my screen so we could all look at it?
Yeah, that would be a good idea. I was going to ask Zach.
Or I also have the
Yeah,
diagram you made, Rachel.
I sent it to Zach because I was having trouble.
Great. So
Okay, so yeah, so you see where I've drawn it. I feel like there should be landscaping around it, but that's the only way. If you look at the street there, Plattekill Avenue, someone would have to walk like through this whole like area where cars are coming in and out. And I feel like this is a safe way to get through, and it makes sense if you look at it, from above as well, because you really want to have more of a square going on there. I mean, basically you have like these two parking lots that are right up against each other, and there's no safe way for the pedestrians to get through that area and back in here. And I feel like that's kind of the thing you need to do if you want to open up the backside of a building, And then there are also, existing footpaths that go to the parking lot. I've drawn those in. It connects the space to the neighborhood around. And I don't think we can, mandate this or anything, but I would like to very strongly suggest that we do it in whatever way I can, because if we're really going to, develop and plan ahead for the village, we should really think about it in terms of, not just the cars dropping people off, but people being able to walk to places.
So Andy, looking at this from the top down, let's keep this up for a moment. Your the idea is to have where the two trees are separating the upper parking lot and the lower parking lot. How far will the outdoor area go in that general area where the building currently exists?
So the outdoor area goes to that second tree about where the P is in proposed, and which is where we have a staircase. We're proposing a staircase because there's, yeah, there we go.
Excellent.
Okay.
Right.
Very
So
good.
right, so anybody in the area, the dining area is completely closed off so that the only entrance is through the parking area on the north there. And there's a retaining wall surrounding the entire thing, so you can't get in there anyway.
Okay.
And then we're proposing a staircase. You can see in that little corner there of the parking lot. So if you park in the municipal lot, you walk up the staircase right into the entrance. So as far as people coming off Plattekill,
Mm-hmm.
if we were to put some kind of a sidewalk, we would lose those 4 parking spaces there. Because it does, if we were to, because it's not the widest entrance there already. So I don't know that we'd be able to keep those 4 or 5 parking spaces if we put a sidewalk there. And the only traffic entering and exiting this lot, there's 16 parking spaces. So as far as parking lots go, it's pretty low volume. I mean, I've seen even very large parking lots that'll have kind of funneling pedestrians, like, you know, even like Tops parking lot doesn't have a central sidewalk to funnel pedestrians. So it would be, it doesn't seem like it has the volume and the vehicle traffic for this small parking lot to warrant kind of its own sidewalk. But, you know, maybe it's something you could ask your traffic engineer while they're, I don't know if they're going to be involved at all in this one actually, but that's my take on that.
So if you were to place a sidewalk in the area that Rachel has suggested, there are 3 immediate spaces that you say you would lose, but would you actually lose them, or could they be placed outside of that sidewalk?
I don't think so, because there's a guide rail there, and then there's the village property line. So if we pushed it over, that entrance isn't particularly wide. So if sidewalk needs to be 5 feet, we lose 5 feet. And it's not going to be wide enough, the entrance, I don't think, there to make that work.
What do you mean by 5 feet?
So the sidewalk, it needs to be 5 feet wide.
Really?
Yeah,
Most sidewalks aren't that wide.
that's the standard kind of handicap width.
Right, for new sidewalks.
Right.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I still wish there was a way to make it more pedestrian friendly. You know, to adjust the line somehow so that people don't just walk through the parking lot to another parking lot, but can actually get through. Because if you think about it too, you know, the sidewalk on Main Street is incredibly narrow. And when there are a lot of people out there, it's impossible sometimes even to walk by. People have to walk out on the street, you know, when it gets crowded, and I guess it's going to get more and more crowded. And what this does is it provides sort of an alternative route if you're headed downtown.
Well, Rachel, do you realize that any sidewalk wouldn't be able to go all the way around the building and connect to this other parking lot, right? Like, because the seating area and the landscaping goes right up to the edge of the retaining wall.
Right. They would lose some space in order to do it. I mean, it would have to go also.
So
like
you're
on
talking
top.
about resizing the whole
Well, a
seating
little
area
bit.
as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just adjusting it a little bit so that there's a way for a person to walk past it, you know, or people already kind of do walk along that wall a little bit and sort of hang out on it because that's just the only place there is, you know.
So what you're also
There's a
seeing
lot.
is possibly the connection that goes to that small trail that leads off towards the Waldorf, or around the back side through that parking lot to the other buildings that are there, or then back down onto Main Street.
Yeah, well, now you'd end up though, I mean, yeah, there's nowhere else to end up except the parking lot that's on the other side. But, now you have, but people live back there. There's people living all around that other parking lot. So I feel like it would also be, pedestrian access for them if they were headed in that direction or headed, people come to and from the campus a lot.
And I don't think there's any, I did see that path through there, that is through private property. It's not a, people walk through, I think it's Waldorf property to get to, you're talking about going to Ennis over there?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the path on the other side, I guess that's also on private property too, but or isn't it? I don't know. I guess it is, but it's a viable connection. It's not like you're trespassing by walking on it, and there's a gate there. You can walk through there to the parking lot instead of walking all the way around the corner.
Well, that's true that I don't think that we really can make or mandate a parking lot that leads to a pathway through private property.
No. Well, it doesn't really, it's not really like that. It's more like those paths lead to the parking lot. They're already there.
True, but those are on private property. So what we're asking.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That
build a sidewalk to lead to a path through private property.
well, okay, so that the Waldorf one, but not the other one, because I think the other one is village right away or village, is it not?
You're talking about the one, it's like.
That goes by Arcos, the Arcos building. It connects Plattekill to the parking lot that goes by the Arcos building.
Okay, so that's in the other corner that goes out towards Plattekill.
Right.
Yeah, so this doesn't really point in that direction. Right? That kind of goes.
No, that they would still have to walk across the parking lot to get through it. Yeah. They would still have to cross the parking lot. I mean, unless at some point in time there's a sidewalk going around the outside of it, of that other whole other lot.
While I think it's worth consideration, I don't see how.
Well, at least the piece from Plattekill Avenue. I see why the rest of it would be a problem. And I guess if you're going to gate the thing in anyhow, I mean, I don't know, but at least that piece really does make sense.
Andy, do me a favor, if you would, please. Can you just look at the width of the entrance and what the code is for the width of entrance and what would occur if we were to look at a 5-foot sidewalk space, and let us know if those all then would fit within the ability to both have the entrance, because you do have, like you said, you do have some of the large waste management trucks to come through there.
Yeah.
Just preclude everything from anybody from coming in, or if it would make it impossible for the residents to then bring their cars up to the parking space that you have designed as part of the building there.
So I have 17 feet in between the parking spaces, right at the entrance there. And that's below, that's pre-existing non-conforming. That's below the minimum for two-way traffic already. And there's really not, I mean, you could bump it out, but there's nowhere to go because there's a building on one side and the property line, and then there's a guardrail and the town property on the other side. So you would lose those parking spaces.
Okay, thoughts by any of the other board members? You know, from my standpoint, looking at that and with it being a pre-existing non-conforming use, if we make a change, then will that require them to get a variance to have that if we require the change? Because I don't see how we can. I don't see how it would physically be possible then to narrow the entrance and exit, maintain the existing parking spaces that they have, and place a sidewalk. I think it just gets to be too crowded. Understanding, of course, the need to have pedestrian passageways, but I do see that you have the stairs which will lead from the lower parking lot, which is where one would anticipate that most of the patrons would be parking, as opposed to parking in the upper parking lot.
That upper parking lot is all permit parking. So if you look at the parking spots directly in front of the apartments, those are all tenants. And the remaining are permitted parking for my employees. And when they come to work, they're working an 8 or 10 hour shift. So there's not a lot of in and out with those cars. They're parked.
I'm not seeing how that's possible. Any other thoughts by any other members? And understand, it's not that I disagree with the idea. I just don't see how it would be physically possible to do that and maintain the integrity of the entrance and exit.
Yeah, given that there's so little traffic coming in and out there, I feel okay letting pedestrians just walk through the parking lot to get to the cafe.
Tom, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I also just, I mean, it seems like a good idea. I'm not sure. I'm also not sure where to put it though. That would work. So I don't know.
Unfortunately, Rachel, I think that we may have to pass on this one, as much as I would like to have it. And you can stop the screen share.
Sure.
As much as I would like to have it, I just don't see how it's physically possible. And given that they are private parking, the private parking lot permit only, and there's not going to be a influx and an outflow of traffic from that parking lot. I just don't see how we can accomplish that, or have the applicant accomplish that.
Oh, it's too bad. You'd have to lose, I guess you'd have to lose those spaces, 4
Yeah.
parking spaces.
So we've covered most of the SUPs, and I am glad to see that you're keeping those trees there as well as part of that. So we're going to look at having the landscaping as part of the requirements, as Rick has noted, and that will then allow us to mitigate some of the noise that's there. Rick, anything else that we need to work through?
No,
I noticed we had the gooseneck lighting reviewed for compliance. And the signage, we covered that. Architectural drawings, we covered that. Application, just let me check to make sure that we're going through all the steps we need to go. So really if we're going to include those, and Rick has said that we have those items included, then our next task is to set a public hearing. Andy, do you think you can have all the remaining information in for our October 5th meeting?
Yes.
and Andy, I would suggest, I know that Alana is going to pass this on to Corey, but I think you may want to reach out to Corey as well with respect to those issues, to see whether or not you can get these answers in time for the public hearing would be best.
Now
Alana, if I could just divert for a second before I forget this topic, because I've done this before. Alana, if I forget to copy Corey on my comments to the planning board, if you could pass them on to him in the ordinary course.
Sure. That's fine.
Thank you.
Now, the Historic Preservation Commission doesn't meet until, I think, second week in October, right, Alana?
I actually saw an email from him today where I thought he said they weren't meeting until October 20th. I know that in the past he's been willing to like offer preliminary comments, but he always seems to be more comfortable getting like full comments from members at a meeting. But I don't know what we want to do with that.
If you set the public hearing for the, I'm sorry.
Can you copy me on that, Alana, and let's see if we can speak to him about this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
John, from a timing point of view, I think if you set a public hearing for the October 5th, assuming everything is in line with what you've asked the applicant to provide, then you could authorize a resolution at that time to be taken up on the next meeting on the 19th or so. And then if you have something from the commission, fine. If not, you may simply hold it over one more meeting, I guess.
Okay, let's do that. So we'll have, let's set the public hearing for October 5th. We're going to have the comments to Corey. We resolve most of the SUP issues. We're going to try to get in touch with the Historic Preservation Committee tomorrow, Tom, and discuss what we're going to need to have before them and see if there's an opportunity to resolve that. Anything else we need to look at then?
The only thing I would throw out there is I know Brian's itching to get the site, some of the site work done before the winter to try to maybe save a little time. If we were able to get SHPO to say that there's no impact on the historic structures, not to go around Tom. Tom is great, and we'll still certainly meet with him and get their comments. But if we were able to provide a no impact letter from SHPO before the October 5th meeting, I'm wondering if that would suffice for the historic part.
I would be okay with that. Let's it might be good to have a little conference call with Tom regarding this. But let's start with this tomorrow, and then yes, go ahead if you want to try to get a no impact letter from SHPO. Otherwise, if we can't, then let's get the HBC together. I was hoping that they might be a little quicker to resolve the issue, but if they're not able to, then we will probably want to go ahead and get that no impact letter from SHPO.
Great, thanks.
Great.
So do we need a motion to set the public hearing for October 5th?
Oh,
So I'm looking for a
a
motion.
motion.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Very good. So we're gonna have that public hearing on October 5th. Sorry, I phrased that as a question rather than I should have. So, all right, so we have our punch list. Alana will get information out. She'll send us kind of a recap of what needs to be done. And we'll try to work through the SHPO and HPC issue as quickly as possible. All right, gentlemen, we're trying to get you to a yes here, but we want to make sure that we keep everything in mind and make sure that the everything is done correctly. So I appreciate you coming here and working.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next up is number 4, the site plan change of use permit, 203 Main Street. District is B1. Returning application for a change of use from office space to residential use. So, Andre, come on in here and let's we can start moving this. The summary is that it's an application for change of use from mixed use to residential. Applicant seeks to convert from a mixed use building from office space to an apartment. Seekers is a type 2 action. The property is located on Main Street, but is exempt from referral under agreement with Ulster County Planning Board as a reoccupancy or reuse of an existing structure. Provided the following: that there are no new additions to the structure. Here the site shows a new porch, but it does not appear the applicant includes a new porch and also shown on the existing site plan. So it may simply be an old plan. We're going to need a clarification on that. We also need and to confirm that the expansion of the parking lot is not required. There is channelized access to State County roadway, and new site lighting proposed uses full cut off luminaries and does not exceed IEA lighting levels. So, I guess one of the things that we need to understand more clearly, based upon some of the conversation back and forth between Corey and me, is what exactly are you proposing for this site? How many bedrooms are you looking to have?
I would change the office space. I don't know if you're looking at a drawing. There'd be 2 bedrooms, to answer the question.
2 bedrooms?
Yes.
Upstairs?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, John.
2 bedrooms upstairs?
No, 2 bedrooms downstairs where the office is now. Instead of office rooms, we would call them bedrooms.
Okay, and then upstairs?
No change upstairs.
Currently, you have how many bedrooms upstairs? 3?
3.
So that puts you there for 5 bedrooms.
Mhm.
And from what I understand from the email exchange, and let me look at this. So from Corey and from back and forth on this is that if you were going to have, if you're going to convert the office space to 2 bedroom in the apartment on the first floor, leave the second floor as is, you would need to have a variance because your lot size is only 0.22 acres, which translates to 9,583 square feet. And you would need 7,620 square feet for a single family home with 3 bedrooms. However, each additional bedroom would require 2,420 square feet, bringing the lot size requirement to 9,680 square feet. So you're about 100 square feet short. So as a result, you will need to get a variance of a lot size variance of 100 square feet. Was that clear, or is that kind of muddy?
I think I understand, yeah. We had originally asked to make the building a 2-family building, but I'm only asking that it be a 1-family building. It didn't occur to me that that solves the problem.
Yeah, it's just it's the lot size that's the issue, and with it being the lot size that it is, if you had fewer bedrooms, it wouldn't need a variance. However, with the number of bedrooms that you would like, you're going to need to have a variance on that.
Mhm.
So we'll have to go to the ZBA as well. We need a plan that is a bit more clear because it does have the old porch on there, which I do not believe that you wanted to have. So we need to have something that can be a bit clearer. And it is my suggestion that you contact Corey regarding that so that you can get that issue resolved. He can tell you exactly what he needs.
I don't see the old porch, John. There's the bathroom, existing entry in the front. Or were we talking in the front of the or the back of the building, or the part over by the road?
I think it was the part by the road.
Okay. That's not a porch. That's an entrance to the basement. That's an unfinished basement. That's pre-existing also.
Okay. All right. So with that, then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get you a referral for for our friends over at the ZBA, so that we can get that taken care of quickly and get you back on the road here.
Okay.
So Alana, when does the next ZBA meeting?
It's October 12th. Yeah.
Okay, so if you meet with them October 12 and everything goes as planned, then our next meeting is the 19th following, so we could have you back here on the 19th.
No, they're gonna need to have a public hearing and stuff before the zoning board
Right.
too.
Okay, all right.
Plus they have to make an application to the ZBA and then they have to advertise the public hearing.
Yeah, and then Corey's gonna wanna be specific about the actual variance that's being requested, like the code and everything like that, so Corey's gonna wanna look at it.
Sounds like I should meet with Corey.
Yeah.
Okay,
Always a good idea.
good.
So we're gonna then ask for a motion to refer this application to the ZBA for their meeting on October 12th.
So moved.
And second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have you then referred to the ZBA for their October 12th meeting. Please get in touch with Corey as soon as possible so that he can get this written up and have it available for them. And that way we can get it moving on and get you back on the road.
Thank you, John.
You're very welcome. Thank you. So the next and the final site plan is PB 2014-85 North Chestnut Street. Applicant is Roddy Serta. Zoning district is the NBR. Andy Willingham is here as well representing them. So summary, as we all know, it's a property that is located at the corner of Mulberry and 32. It's in the NBR. They're seeking to remove an existing auto repair shop, construct a 3-story multi-use building and associated improvements. Excuse me. The first floor will be 3,300 square feet of commercial space, 3 one-bedroom units, and the second floor and third floor will have a total of 12. Oh, okay, 13 one-bedroom units on the second. And then the third floor will have a total of 12 two-bedroom units. So the applicant is seeking site plan approval. Following special use permits are listed. And its connection to the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail. Unlisted action under seeker. We assume lead agency June 16, 2021. At the 8/17 meeting, the board directed the applicant to proceed with an expanded part 3 to address traffic, lighting, construction. So we will be reviewing the expanded part 3 and tonight. And GML application was referred to Ulster County Planning Board. They conducted a gateway meeting. They provided notes from that meeting, and they include 3 required modifications and 1 advisory comment. Required modification is follow final approval of proposed access by NISDOT. Signage details must be provided and all signage must meet standard of village zoning statute, which I understand you are going to incorporate into the next submittal. And then the third one is a village and applicant should look at ways the proposal is meeting the New York State Stretch Energy Code and actively seek to reduce carbon footprint. Infrastructure necessary to develop electric vehicle charging stations, alternatives to fossil fuels such as passive solar and geothermal. And I believe you have something ready for the October 5th meeting on that. And then the advisory comment stated that the development of a master signage plan along with the storefronts combined with an architectural feature, perhaps one that wraps about the building, may help to further define the building as a mixed-use structure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
I didn't know if you saw that Carlito Holt from PDE has joined us.
I did see that, and I was going to ask him in a moment if he had a chance to do the study. So Carlito, why don't you go ahead and give us your input? How are you?
Good. How are you, Mr. Chairman? Good evening, everyone. Carlito Holt with Provident Design Engineering. So we were retained late second half of last week to review the traffic study and the site plan submitted on this application. We're in the midst of our review, and we're looking to wrap that up by the end of this week. We have had some correspondence with the applicant's traffic engineering consultant to try and get some additional information to help us in our review. Initial comments are, this isn't a major, wouldn't rise to the level of being a major traffic generator where you would expect any significant off-site impacts at adjacent intersections. So everything's more immediate to the area surrounding the site. I think one of the benefits that we see initially is that the prior use had one long curb cut that existed for the entire lot frontage, and they're now eliminating that long curb cut, which is not a good way of controlling access, and they would share access with the property to the south for entering movements, and anyone exiting would exit via Mulberry Street. So we're reviewing that. We'll have a memo prepared and circulated by hopefully by the end of this week. But some things that we need to be sensitive to is access to the Wallkill Valley Rail Trail. They do have pedestrian path that crosses over their access or their cross access between the adjacent property. So we want to make sure that that's done safely. And then, ultimately DOT is going to have a lot of input on the application as well, since it involves their highway.
Okay. So, Rick, do you want to kind of lead us through?
I think that the thing that we're in the midst of is the seeker review, right? And that's important for a couple of reasons. One, in its own right, this planning board needs to decide whether or not there are any significant adverse environmental impacts. You went through EAF Part 2 at the last meeting and identified just a few concerns, one of which is traffic, which is why you've engaged Carlito to advise you on those. And the other reason why seeker is important is that the ZBA, with a pending application for the height of the building, cannot act until seeker is completed, because this is a coordinated review. So it appears that you'll not be able to resolve the traffic issue, which is probably one of the most major of the impacts that you've identified. So I don't know whether or not you want to put off the whole EAF Part 3 submission by Andy, where he is trying to address those issues that you've identified as potential adverse impacts, or whether you want to address all of them except for traffic and then just leave that for your next meeting. And there are some other issues too, but I think seeker is a primary thing that you ought to be addressing.
That's a very good question. Creighton Manning is a reputable group, and they've done other work that we're aware of, and we want to make sure that we have things studied correctly. So that's why we gave that to PDE, our consultant. In my mind, I would like to do all of it entirely, and to ask the board members that they look at what we currently have, and then let's read it and let's be considerate about it, study it, and then when we have our next meeting, then we can go through all of these things as well. It would give Mr. Willingham time to bring a couple of other items forward that are still outstanding. But it depends upon, to a degree, what's the thought of the board. I want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to voice what they would like to do. Do you want to go ahead and begin on the FEAF Part 3 tonight, saving the traffic part for the next meeting, or would you like to dedicate the full time to doing all of it in one fell swoop?
I'd go with putting it off.
I also kind of agree. I mean, I looked through it, read through it earlier this week, but I think it just would be easier to discuss it all at once and make our determination at the next meeting.
Tom?
Agreed.
A man of many words, that Tom. Okay, so then we're gonna look at FEAF Part 3. That's gonna be one of the most major parts that we're going to be working on for our next meeting. I think our next meeting is probably much lighter than tonight. So I'm going to ask you to do your homework, to read it, please, again. Look at the FEAF 2, the issues that we brought forward. We may want to get a summary of those issues again, and then look at Part 3 and go through it in depth, so that the next meeting, when we go through it and discuss it, it won't simply be a long monologue by me, but that's something that we can actually spend some time and discuss in depth. Rick, do you want to continue with other issues?
Sure. I think
Sorry, just while we're on seeker, I just want to add that the last meeting, I wrote down 4 issues: traffic, dust, let's see, lighting, and I forget the other one, but I wrote a fairly detailed narrative. As far as we're concerned, we addressed it on our end. We did the best we could in this last submittal to address all the remaining seeker issues. We got the traffic study. And we really want to try to obviously get seeker done for multiple reasons. Not only can we get into the site plan and really get to this final design of this project, but also the ZBA and also the DOT. First thing the DOT is going to ask, although they've approved this conceptually, the layout, they're not going to dig into the real permit of the sidewalks and the traffic until they see a secret determination. So if there's anything else that the board needs for that next meeting, if you could let us know now so we can make sure you have everything that you need.
I agree, and let's go through these remaining issues, and it's going to give you a very detailed list, punch list that we can use to go through. I mean, this is a big project, and it's similar in some degrees to the project that's across the street. And while that one took a year and a half, we don't want this to take a year and a half. But we also want to make sure that we're thorough, because this is a project that, along with the one across the street, will totally redefine that corridor. So we want to make sure that while we do it quickly, we also do it correctly. So I beg your pardon for taking the time that we're taking, but it's a big project, and it's there's a lot of technical data, and there's a lot of points to go through, and I wish we were able to move faster. However, I am pleased that we're moving thoroughly.
Yeah, I understand. I just want to make sure we have everything we need, that we're not missing anything.
Yeah, I would like that too, and that way we can we can go through the punch list and start knocking off these things and getting towards the site plan and getting that all taken care of. So Rick, why don't you continue with the issues, and let's see what we've got here.
Okay, the next issue is with respect to the GML. There are 3 mandatory modifications and 1 suggestion. Of the 3, 1 is final approval of the proposed access by DOT. That's a given, whether or not it was included in the Ulster County Planning Board. DOT has to sign off on this. So there's really nothing for the planning board to do on that other than, find out what's the resolution of the access. You have a proposed access, which Andy is telling you has been preliminarily given the nod at least, but certainly no official approval yet. And that may be one of these chicken and egg things where they're waiting for the end of seeker. But the other 2 things that were mandatory, the signage and energy code issues, as I understand it from Andy, is that he will be answering those in the next submittal. And so I don't know that it makes a lot of sense to go over them presently, but we'll wait for the next submittal and see if indeed that does respond to what the GML requirement was, unless you want to go through them.
I would only add that, the signage is no problem. You have to do that anyway. But the energy requirement, I feel it's something that we should at least discuss a little bit. So it's kind of a long comment, and it's not, although it's a required modification, it doesn't say exactly what they want, but we are going to provide solar panels for some of the common spaces in the building for electricity. And then we're going to go with heat pumps. And they did specifically mention heat pumps. The mini splits, most everybody knows what those are by now. They're great. They're really efficient. The county's requiring them. The downside of them is that you have these units on the outside of the building, and we need to deal with that. The ZBA wants to see what that's going to look like. So as we speak today, tomorrow, we're trying to find ways to blend that in nice, because this building is very visible. It's not like there's a back of it, in the woods or something. You can see every side of it. So we are doing heat pumps. We're going to have these units. So we're trying to make it look as nice as possible. And we'll show that to the board for this next meeting.
Okay.
Good.
That's all
So
there
is-
really is for the GML. I'm sorry, were you saying something, Rachel?
I just wanted to ask, so the building is going to be entirely heated electrically with the heat pumps?
Correct.
That's awesome.
Okay, I noticed that there's some issues related to parking, Rick, is that correct? The planning board may also consider a further reduction to the amount of on-site parking for different types of mixed-use properties.
I'm trying to figure out where that is.
It's page 9, number 2, Rick.
Thank you. So the issue on parking that we raised, and again, this is in the context of special use permit requirements, is the planning board should address whether the applicant has demonstrated that on-site parking should be reduced as indicated in the parking table. The planning board may also consider a further reduction to the amount of on-site parking for different types of mixed-use properties, where it's demonstrated that the reduction in spaces and shared use parking will substantially meet the intent. And I think it's best presently for you to sort of seek the applicant's, Andy's input on this, and he may indeed want to bring in Creighton Manning to address it, or we could have, the planning board could certainly address it directly through Carlito with respect to the circulation and parking issues.
I would suggest, I mean, we use the request, I would say recommended reductions in parking per the code. We use the exact numbers that were in the code. I know there's recommendations. But I mean, instead of getting, two traffic engineers involved, we would suggest just sending that. I did write to Carlito. We did provide a small argument to you, Rick, just a paragraph. In our experience, that those ratios are reasonable. But I guess I would say, let's send that, if it's okay with the board, send that to Carlito, and if he needs more information on our side, then we can provide it.
Okay.
And Carlito, if you, I don't know, I think you can directly, if it's all right with the planning board, directly speak with Andy with respect to the issue and the code provisions involved.
Yep.
Does anyone
I don't
have
think it's
a
a-
problem with them speaking directly to the applicant regarding this?
Nope.
I'm fine with it. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and do that?
And the comments that the planning board has from my office, I also provided to Andy, so he has our review of those issues, the same as the planning board does, so he can share that with Carlito as well, obviously.
Okay. Looks like another part is we're going to need to review the plans for conformance with building design standards in the code regarding mechanical equipment now that it's going to be on the ground.
I think that's going to be addressed in the resubmittal. I think the biggest part of that is going to be, as Andy had said, with respect to screening, and there's going to be a lot of pieces of equipment, as I understand it, and it's going to be a challenge to go ahead and adequately screen that.
Okay.
There's a issue that I've highlighted, and if Alana could pass this on to Corey, it's on page 10 with respect to the canvas or canvas-like awnings. But he has built roof overhangs at the existing doors that will be illuminated by recessed lighting. And Corey should weigh in on whether this is permitted. Do you see that, Alana? On page 10, near the bottom.
Yeah, I have it starred.
Okay, thank you. Do you, what about a refuse enclosure? Where do you have that, Andy?
We have it on the south side of the site in I think it's our standard stockade fence enclosure with gate.
And it's on the plans, and the planning board needs to see whether or not the code requires that it be concealed from public views from the street and the Wallkill rail trail and adjacent properties. So the planning board needs to look at that and see whether or not they are satisfied with that, or whether or not they want some other enclosure for the refuse container. And then the landscaping plan is, planning board has to review it and determine whether or not they are okay with the landscaping plan.
Andy, you're going to have that landscaping plan for the next submission. Is that true?
Yes, it's been part of the set for a while now.
Right.
It's going to be revised per a couple changes, but yes, it definitely.
Okay, because what I would really like to do, because it seems to me that we're covering a lot of the same ground, and because we need to, but to get a punch list so that we can devote some time to going through and checking off some of these things so that we get some forward movement. If we can have that, all of these things, and I'm sure we're gonna get you a punch list for next week, for next meeting, that would be very good in my opinion. So we can push through on some of these.
Sure.
I think that from my point of view, anyway, John, Andy has the punch list from our comments.
Okay.
Those are the types of issues that he needs to address. He's addressed some, and others he says he's going to provide additional materials in his next submittal. But the landscaping plan is one that's before you, and as is the location of the refuse. And the planning board has to be happy with where the refuse and how the refuse container is situated so that it is protected from all the viewpoints from around there, including the rail trail, and whether or not you're happy with the landscaping. There's landscaping in the parking lot, I believe, as well as landscaping around the perimeter.
Yeah, as far as a punch list, that we've been using Rick's letter as kind of a list, and then providing a response to the ones that that apply to us. Some of them, like Rick said, is for the board to determine whether it's adequate or not. But that's what we've been using as a kind of an ongoing checklist.
It's hard to tell what it's really going to look like. Yeah, I'd like to. We're going to talk about the dumpsters. I'd like to see what they look like.
You're talking about the dumpsters or the building?
Oh, the dumpsters and the trees. The building you can see pretty clearly, I think, in the picture.
Okay.
Do you have the site plan up, Rachel? Because on page 4, they have the landscape plan with all the trees.
Can you share that, Zach? I think it might be helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I guess what I should have said was a rendering. I don't know. You have a rendering of the buildings. You can see what the building looks like. But but you can't tell what it would really look like from the rail trail. And that's where you're worried about. That's where we're worried about the view of the dumpsters and the whatever. I like the big trees.
We do have a rendering from the back.
I mean, there are a couple elevations here, so the dumpster would be off to the side, but
there is an actual rendering. I don't know if you have that. I can bring that up.
yeah, if you wanted to share that, that'd be great.
So here's the rendering. Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Oop. All right, here's the front on Chestnut. Here's another view straight on from the front. This is the rear.
Where's the dumpster, Andy, in that?
Yeah.
So so in this view, it would be off to the right. And in this view, it would be off and to the right as well. So typically these renderings, they do the building. But as far as incorporating like every plant and all these details is pretty difficult to do. But we can certainly provide a separate rendering or picture of what the dumpster enclosure would look like. If that helps.
I think it would.
Yeah, because
help the planning board.
It's interesting because it's such a strange strange view. I mean, it wouldn't really look like that from the rail trail.
Right, there's some woods in here, and we're planting actually a grass buffer, I believe. Yeah, some grasses along the park in there. This is really more meant for the building, but as far as
Right.
the stockade fence, we were just going to propose a cedar stockade fence. But if the board has other ideas on something, a little bit more interesting or different, we're certainly.
Well,
can do that.
I understand making it prettier, but I would want to make sure that it's fairly durable so that it doesn't get damaged and fall apart. And then we have the dumpster sitting out there exposed. So I'm quite fine with the cedar.
Yeah, and I think the location is pretty good. It's not too close to the rail trail or right next to the road. I like that it's somewhat shielded by the tree there. So
Now with the tree there, is that going to make it difficult for the waste solid waste truck to empty?
Check what the I'll check with the landscape architect to see, if the branches are kind of overhanging the dumpster. The dumpster's on the roadside, and the tree will be behind it. But we can always push it over a little bit towards the trail.
I mean, it probably wouldn't be an issue for a few years anyway.
Yeah. Actually, while I have this open, there's a couple of small changes we're considering. I think it's the right time. I wanted to run it by the board. This sidewalk here, we had it along the building, but I think it makes a lot more sense to put this along Mulberry, right? So that it's a public sidewalk through here, and then there's a separate access up to the side of the building. Does the board have any objection to that?
I don't
That
know.
sounds like a good idea. I hadn't even thought of that. And I hadn't really, I'm gonna have to go and look around and see how other people conceal their dumpsters. Well, cedar sounds good. But yeah, I think that makes sense. That really does.
Would that prevent you from planting some of those trees there, or would you be able to put those closer to the building?
I think we would put them closer because it's going to open up this. One of the reasons we want to do it is open up this space here to be able to put some of those heat pump units and be able to landscape. So I don't think we would lose them. We may, however, lose one or two of these to the DOT, honestly, for site distance.
Those first two right there.
But we'll try to put them somewhere else.
Yeah.
I can't read that. What kind of trees are those?
Let's see. AS would be a apple serviceberry. And if it helps the board, I can have a landscape architect here, and she knows everything in the world about an apple serviceberry, I'm sure.
I think having her here next meeting to go over a landscaping plan would be a good idea.
Okay. And the other change that we're considering is initially we wanted some space between the building and the sidewalk, and we got 10.5 feet, which has some space for landscaping and grass. The more I'm hearing, the intent of the MBR, and I was talking to the mayor the other day, the intent is really to have the building closer to the sidewalk. So we're actually considering pushing the building a few feet closer to the road to make it more like a streetscape, and that would give some more room for landscaping in the back and screening for the heat pump units in the back, because it's pretty tight back here. I don't know if the board has any objection to this being like 6 or 7 feet of landscaping instead of 10 between the sidewalk and the building.
I think that would be fine.
Okay with that.
It's kind of the idea is to have a neighborhood streetscape in the area as opposed to a distant block.
Great.
Yeah, those look like very small trees. I'm looking at the apple serviceberry. It doesn't look like they get very big.
That may have been the intent for as far as sight distance and safety. I'll certainly talk with Eileen and have her here next meeting that's to discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big advantages of a tree is that they provide a shade canopy, so that's why it's good to have one big ones.
Yeah,
Trees can grow big.
power lines. There's
Yeah.
power lines too.
Power lines.
Yeah.
Cut around them.
So we've okayed the dumpster. We're gonna have the landscape architect next week. We've approved moving the building closer to the street. Now, I note that Tom from the Historic Preservation Committee made a note. Did you receive that, Andy, about looking at the possibility of having a balcony setting for these units?
Yeah, I think that was something that the applicant was considering, and then after talking with the architect and all the implications of balconies, we decided that we're not going to pursue that.
Okay. I'm gonna send you the, we got over from the HPC for that.
Andy, one of the requirements, and it's in my comments here, is that the architectural plans must include the building materials according to the code. And there haven't been any new architectural plans submitted since October 19th. So if you could make sure that whatever the board has is what you're proposing, and if you're going to be changing anything, now's the time to let the board know in your next submittal.
Sounds good. We're going to submit those elevations anyway for the heat pump units, so we'll put that on there.
Okay. I have nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, so all right, so next week or next meeting, you're gonna have some submissions. We're gonna look at we're gonna have the architectural, excuse me, the landscape architect here. We're going to go through the part 3. Anything else?
Well, there'll be several revisions in the plans that is being proposed. So they'll all be in there, as well as the architectural building materials. And obviously, as part of the part 3 are the traffic issues.
Carly's gonna have the traffic issues on that, okay. And he's also going to look at the parking issues as well, correct?
Right, yeah, and traffic, on-site traffic circulation.
The only thing I would add is that, it's kind of short notice. I'm going to submit everything that's related to seeker for sure. I may not have an answer to every single one of these by the submittal. I think it's on Monday, but I think, we'll hit all the ones we talked about. The ones that are obviously related to seeker, traffic, parking, landscaping, I don't know if you need this dumpster picture for seeker or not.
I wouldn't think that would be for see, that's more site plan stuff.
Right.
Yeah, as this board has done in the past, it sometimes is necessary to sort of focus in on seeker to get that out of the way, especially when you have an associated ZBA application that's waiting on it.
At elevation views showing the heat pumps. I could talk to Rick and make sure we have everything that we need for as far as seeker for this next meeting.
I think that's a good idea, and that way we can move on it and get it done so that, or at least get it in process so that we don't have to hold the ZBA up. Okay. Carlito, anything you need to add to that? Anything that you need for him while you've got his attention right here?
No, I think we're good. And Andy, you are counting the on-street parking that you're proposing as part of your parking count, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I think we're good for now.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, I think that we've kind of reached an end point for this evening. And we'll look forward to getting these things. You're going to get with Rick, get the punch list. Alana will have information as well. Carlita is going to develop something, and then we're going to really work on seeker and the FEAF next week to try to get those moving in the right direction.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Serda. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay. So that leads us to the last part of the meeting tonight, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank everyone, and we'll look forward to getting information to you for our next meeting in a couple of weeks, October 5th.
Bye, guys.